Welcome back, toy fans, to episode 100 and... I've got no idea what episode number it is. Welcome back to episode 100 and something of Ronald's Reviews, and on today's episode, we're going to unbox some Return of the Jedi Retro Collection. Cue the march. Welcome back, everyone. Now, like I said in the intro, today we are going to unbox some Return of the Jedi Retro Collection figures. Now, I've had these on pre-order since around November, I think, and in that time, I've actually made a bit of a decision about the Retro Collection. I'm no longer going to collect any Retro Collection figures outside the original 96. I've sold my prototype versions. I've sold my Wave 2 of my Mandalorian Retro Collection figures. I have kept Wave 1 of the Mandalorian Retro Collection because they were sent to me as gifts from Nick, Action Pop Dad, and Jason from Travels with Jason S. So I will be keeping Wave 1. I don't move on gifts. You know, they mean a lot more to me when they're sent as gifts, so they'll be staying. But everything else, Retro Collection, I'm not going to bother with. I'm not going to bother with Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or anything like that. I'm just going to stick to any figures that are released from the original 96. So today we're going to unbox the Return of the Jedi figures, take a closer look, and compare them to their vintage counterparts.
Okay, here we go. So I ordered these from Star Action Figures. They arrived a few days ago, so let's get into it. I apologise for the lighting, everybody. It's a really dull day today while I'm filming. I've got my spotlights on, but it still seems a little bit dull on camera, so I apologise, but let's get into this. Okay, so I'm going to start with my least favourite, my personal least favourite of the 6, and that is the Emperor. It's just one of them figures that has never really got hold of me. Certainly a figure that needed to be in this collection, but just for me, not one of my favourites. So we're not going to talk about the huge Retro Collection figure. Everyone spoke about that before. They don't really offend me anymore, so I'm not going to take it off. I'm just going to leave it. And of course the weathering, we're not going to talk really about the weathering in the cardstock because we know that the cardstock's poor, very flimsy, and I know that we don't like the weathering. The thing is, I get the weathering because, like me, if I was to take off the Retro Collection sticker, like my originals, my Star Wars collection, I took the sticker off. Now, to seasoned collectors, you're not going to fool them with these, but new collectors, once that sticker was gone, and if the weathering wasn't there, could you fool new collectors with these figures into thinking they were vintage? You probably could. However, the Return of the Jedi ones, of course, has got the 40th anniversary badge at the top corner, so these, can't be mistaken for vintage, but I do think they've done a very good job of these. Again, we're not really going to spend much time looking at the back. The back are all the same. We've got all the legal jargon, no images, so we're not going to spend any time looking at the backs of the cards, but I've got to admit, I think they've done an amazing job. The card back image is one, obviously, that we're always familiar with. Now, if you've come to see these out of the packet, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take these out of the packet. I'm going to leave these in, but yeah, I mean, let's be honest. They have done a good job of these. And these original Retro Collection figures, one's from the original 96, because we can compare them, we can sort of look at them and think, well, how good a job have they done? And I've got to admit, I think they do a really, really good job. And I do like them. I know they're not a lot of people's cup of tea, but personally, for me, the reason why I think they're great is because it gives everyone, me included, because my budget is very, very modest, so it gives everyone a chance to have these figures on card if you never got them as a kid. And now, if you can't collect them, if you don't have the funds to collect them as an adult collector, when I go to Echo and things like that, I'm always looking and hoping to pick up a carded figure, but they're just so out of my price range. So even though I know these are modern, they do give me that feel of being able to have a vintage figure on card. And even in a case, they do look great. So, okay, let's compare him to his vintage version. Okay, and here we go. So, how does the Emperor from the Retro Collection compare to the vintage version? Now, I've got to say, initial reaction is it's very, very good. I think the face on my Emperor looks obviously a bit more weathered and a bit more, I don't know if there's a few more wrinkles in there. Now, that might be just because of how old the figure is, but I do think there is more wrinkles in the vintage version's face actually moulded in there. I don't think that's down to age. So, the Retro Collection Emperor face does look a bit smoother. But other than that, I think they've done a brilliant job. The robes pretty much look exactly the same. The colour looks pretty good on them as well. Maybe a tiny bit lighter than the vintage one. But overall, I think that's an absolutely fantastic sculpt and very, very much identical to its vintage version. So yeah, I think they've done a really good job of recreating the Emperor. Colour on his face looks good as well. So yeah, really good. Okay, but how do the rest measure up? Okay, and now we move on to Endor Han Solo, or Trenchcoat Han Solo, as a lot of people like to know him. And again, I think they've done a really good job of this. That card, the image on the card is maybe a bit yellowy. I don't know if that could have been a little bit more... So if the colour could be a bit better on that. It's really yellowy, that. I don't know if that's deliberate or that could have been better. But again, we've got the trench coat. They've gone with the trench coat with the lapels with the pattern on rather than a plain... Is it lapel? Would you call it lapel collar? Because you can get a plain collar and a patterned collar, can't you? So they've gone with a patterned collar. But again, I just think they've done a good job with these. You know, and this edition, to be honest, this version of Han, I was quite surprised to see this one in there. I've got to admit, I was surprised to see this Han Solo in the 6, and I was quite surprised to see Wicket not. I've got to admit, I thought we'd get an Ewok. I thought we'd get Wicket. But very, very pleased to get this version of Han Solo, and I do like it a lot. That's a great image on the card, like I say, a little bit yellowy, but I can live with that. Okay, so let's take a look compared to his vintage version. Okay, so how does Han Solo in Trenchcoat measure up? Now, I think it's pretty obvious immediately the glaring difference. Well, there's two glaring differences. So the pattern on the Retro Collections coat is far darker. The camo pattern is far darker than mine. So mine is a vintage version, so... Yeah, wow, that is significantly darker. And his hair on the Retro Collection version looks darker as well. Now, not a huge amount. So again, it could be over time, and because my vintage Han has got obviously a little bit of rub on there, and but yeah, his hair is much darker. And the coat is massively different. I mean, look at that. That is super different. His shirt underneath his coat, his shirt looks a slightly more off-white than my vintage version as well. The face sculpt looks very good. I mean, I think the Retro Collection version again looks certainly softer. The face has softer features, but again, that could be because of time. But wow, the coat is such a different colour. It's making me question my vintage one now. I'll have to look into this. Again, I've got the best book going though. I'll have to take a look at Johnny and Greg's book and just see how dark or light the pattern is in there. But yeah, significantly different. But the sculpt is great. It looks good. And again, I think they've done a good job. But yeah, I'm going to have to check out the colour difference on this coat. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, so now we move on to Lando Calrissian in Skiff Guard disguise. Now, I've got to admit, this is my favourite version of Lando across the board of the vintage Star Wars figures. This is my favourite one. I really do like it. And I do like that image. The image is a bit grainy on the card. But again, iconic image from when he's in Jabba's palace, and I'm really pleased that they put this one in. Again, removable helmet, which is really cool. Now, if you watch Monkey Boy's Toys, he got on recently, and I think his Lando Skiff Guard had like a green head or something. Or was it a green? I think it was a green helmet and a green head. But really cool, and it's really nice to get a couple of figures in there with removable helmets because we didn't get that many in the vintage line. So it was really nice to get this one. But like I say, this is my favourite version of Lando. So very, very happy to see this one in there. But yeah, okay, so how does it measure up against its vintage version? Let's take a look. There he is. Let's just take his helmet off. There we go. So again, immediately one glaring difference. So again, this could be because of age and time on my vintage version. The skin colour on my vintage version is far lighter than the Retro Collection version. But other than that, looks pretty good. The sculpt is good. I think the armour, or again the outfit on the retro version looks a little bit darker brown on his chest than mine does, but again that could be because of age. But yeah, very good. Actually, his wrist gauntlet on his right arm looks silver on the Retro Collection, where it's more of like a sort of grey or brown on the vintage version. So does that mean his shoulder guards are silver? I think they are actually. So yeah, slight difference there, but looks like a good sculpt, and once you get his helmet on, like I said, I think the character just takes on a completely new dynamic. But yeah, good sculpt. I think they've done a good job of that. But yeah, a couple of slight paint variations. Other than that, yeah, very good. And the helmet looks the right brown as well. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, and now we move on to one of my favourites in the 6, the Biker Scout, and I was so pleased when we saw this in there. I was really hoping we'd get a Trooper. It had to be the Biker Scout, obviously, but I love that card. Absolutely love that card image. Like I say, a bit of shame that obviously we've got that Retro Collection sticker over the top of it, but I was so pleased when I saw the Scout Trooper in there. And look at that card. So cool. And the figure itself, really, really cool. And I dare say when I put my Biker Scout next to it, I'll probably see just how yellow mine is. I think it's nice and white, but compared to this one, it'll probably be a bit yellow. But yeah, absolutely awesome. Now, I was tempted to get 2 of these and take one out the packet and put it on one of my speeder bikes, but yeah. What I forgot to mention as well, they folded up the paperwork and put it underneath the feet, which again, still not ideal, but I think it's better than putting it behind the figure because that spoils the displayability, whereas underneath the feet you can kind of sort of ignore it, you know, you can kind of sort of think it's not there. But yeah, so pleased to see the Biker Scout in the 6. So okay, let's compare him to his vintage version. Okay, and now we are on to the Scout Trooper, or the Biker Scout. So, as suspected, now I thought my Biker Scout was really nice and minty white, but once you put it next to the Retro Collection version, you can see it doesn't actually look that bad on camera, but my version is certainly more yellow than the Retro Collection. But the sculpt looks good, so as you can see, the legs on the Retro Collection are a little bit tighter together. Again, I don't know if that's because I've been chucking mine onto the speeder bike, so it's been pulling his legs apart, but the legs are definitely tighter on the Retro Collection version. And one thing that I think is also fairly obvious, the head sculpt on the Retro Collection version is wider. Definitely wider than the vintage version. The vintage version is definitely more narrow. Yeah, definitely is. Definitely wider. But other than that, very good sculpt. Everything else looks pretty much the same. We've got his blaster in there as well. I don't have a blaster for mine, but yeah, everything else looks pretty spot on. Obviously, the definition on the armour is a little bit sharper on the Retro Collection. Again, you know, my vintage figure's sort of 40 years old, so it's going to be a little bit softer, I guess. But overall, the sculpt very, very good, as expected. But yeah, the head is definitely a bit wider. So, okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, and now we get to Princess Leia Organa in Boosh disguise. Again, another figure that was really pleased to see in there. I absolutely love this outfit. I love this figure in the vintage line as well. We've got that huge rifle staff. We've got the Boosh helmet there. And look at that card image. I absolutely love that card image. Again, covered by the sticker, which is a shame, but what an image that is. And again, a figure that I kind of felt that had to be in the Return of the Jedi Retro Collection. Absolutely iconic figure. And another one of those figures that when you see it on eBay, just without any of its accessories, it's a really unassuming figure, and you just pass it really quickly. But the second you see with that helmet on especially, I just think straight away it gives the figure a completely new dynamic. And I personally really, really love the fact that they've included this figure. So yeah, really pleased to get this. The helmet sculpt looks great as well. But yeah, okay. So, but how does it measure up against her vintage version? Initial reaction is this sculpt looks very good. Let's just take her helmet off. I love the Boosh helmet, by the way. How cool is that? Such a cool helmet. How badly do we need that in the Black Series? 1.1 scale version. Probably too difficult to make, but I digress. Okay, so oof, my Leia's seen a little bit of action. She's a bit worse for wear under that helmet, but she looks very good sculpt. So the paint apps on the Retro Collection is a little bit more of a matte finish. Now again, that could be just because of time. So the paint on my vintage version looks a bit more shiny because it's been handled a lot. But oh, I maybe need a new Leia. I need an upgrade for that, don't I? Wow, look at her head there. Definitely need an upgrade. But features look again softer on the Retro Collection version, and I think her head looks a little bit rounder on the Retro Collection. I think the vintage version looks a little bit longer, whereas the Retro Collection definitely looks a bit rounder and a bit shorter. But other than that, very good sculpt. The colour looks pretty much the same, and of course you've got the helmet on the Retro Collection down as well. It looks pretty much the same. So yeah, another good job. But I'm definitely going to eBay to get an upgrade for my Leia. Wow, no idea she was like that under the helmet. Okay, on to the final one. And of course, we saved the best till last. Shabby's favourite, and I've got to admit, my personal favourite in the Return of the Jedi Retro Collection wave. We knew we were going to get a new Luke Skywalker in Jedi Knight outfit. I think that was pretty obvious, but look at that. So they've gone with the cape behind him. Iconic image. Then we've got his green saber. So packed him with a green saber instead of a blue saber. But of course, we had to get Luke Jedi, didn't we? Look at that. What an amazing figure. And so pleased he included this. But yeah, wow. And I bet Shabby will be so pleased to see this in there as well. Just one of them figures. Again, a little bit like Lando and Boost Leia. When you just see the figure being sold on his own, you kind of just pass him by, you know. But once you put his saber with him and get that cloak on him, especially if you manage to pick up the snap cape, he just takes on a completely new dynamic. And I just think it's an amazing figure and one that was an absolute must for this line. So, but again, how does he measure up against his vintage counterpart? So the face is actually quite significantly different on this one. Let me just see if I can pull his hood down. So I think if you look at the vintage Jedi Luke face and compare it to the retro version has a completely different look. His eyes are a lot closer. And I think that, again, the head is a bit rounder. But his eyes are very close together. Never noticed that until I put him next to this guy. But other than that, the outfit looks amazing. That all black, jet black outfit, that sort of coming of age outfit. Finally a Jedi Knight. And like I said, we've got him with the green saber instead of the blue saber, but very, very good sculpt. But that face sculpt is very different. I don't know how Shabby's going to like that one, but I mean, it's not a bad sculpt, you know, it looks nice, but very different to the vintage version. Definitely a longer face, and his eyes are so close together. But still, obviously, amazing figure. Really happy to have him. And yeah, lovely. Okay, so let's get everything back on the table and we'll wrap up. And there we go, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. Everything back on the table, and I've got to admit, I'm really impressed with this Return of the Jedi Retro Collection line. I think they've done a great job with the sculpt. Obviously, a few differences that I'm going to have to check out. Definitely that trench coat on Han. Definitely want to take a look and see what's going on with that. Very, very different. But other than that, everything else fantastic and so close to the vintage versions as well. So yeah, there we go. Hope you enjoyed it. And obviously, as you can see, I am back now. I had a couple of weeks away, a little bit of an injury. I'm still recovering, but it's certainly good enough to film now. So we've got loads of videos lined up. We are back for every single Sunday now. Loads of stuff coming, so make sure you keep an eye on the channel. And yeah, plenty of vintage goodness on the way and a little bit of modern stuff as well. So there we go, everyone. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by and giving me a shot. I hope you'll consider leaving a like and subscribing. And if you're one of my existing viewers and existing subscribers, thank you for sticking with me, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Leave any comments or questions in the comment section below. I always try to read everyone's comments and get back to everybody. And as always, keep collecting. I'll see you next time.